Can he?
Yes. Hello, good evening. Now this is a Kritya talk. After a festival, we are again to talk because there is so much to talk. There is and discuss about poetry, pandemic, many problems.
Hello,
Uh,
good evening.
and many things.
Now this is a
Hello. So now we are going to talk today about again poetry and poetry therapy, and we have Ashraf Aboul-Yazid from Egypt and Babitha Justin from India. Um, Ashraf talked last time, and when he was talking, he has many more ideas about poetry therapy. And Babita also is interested in this subject as a writer and as a poet. Um, when as a writer of this book, The Fist Which Opens, uh, I know that my limitations. I know that I cannot bring everything in this book, and there are many ideas, many corners which are left behind, and that is how one book is the starting point of thoughts, and that is how I want more and more people discuss with their own experience, which will enrich us with in this field, the poetry therapy. So I ask first Babita Justin to open up and talk about it, and invite Ashraf. And I will be sitting here watching you both. And in between, if you need me, I will come and talk. Thank you.
A very good
Start.
evening to
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you, Rati Madam, Rati Sakrina Madam, who in fact, I want to remember one of those incidents in which I was introduced to poetry therapy. It was something very new to me. It was during one of the Kritya festivals, if I remember right. Uh, Dr. Rati Saxena was talking about poetry therapy, and I was like, what is this? This is something new. And she was telling us about her experience in the jail. In fact, she had gone there with a couple of with some poets. She had gone to the cancer ward, in fact, with some poets, and she recited poetry there. And it must have looked like a very eccentric and a strange act altogether. But the way the patients responded to the entire poetry stuff, and all those poets who were there were from different regions. You know, they were from different languages altogether, different countries altogether, but the patients, in fact, they were kind of soothed by the balming poetry around. So this looked very incredulous to me. But then now with her book, poetry on poetry therapy, we can in fact read about centuries of the tradition of healing in poetry therapy. So yeah, I would like to invite Mr. Ashraf to talk about the book as well and his own experiences in poetry therapy, and how his own culture, his religion has in fact looks at the therapeutic effect of poetry as such.
You know, when we talked last time about poetry and therapy connected to each other, I was touched by the beginnings of showing these ways of dealing by poetry. Actually, let me say that from reading this book, I realized that every and each poet has his own school in healing, whether it is healing himself or healing the others. There are always some ways to heal, actually. Uh, those who are suffering from, let us say, suffering from normal diseases, or let us say like this, known diseases by people, they are taking medicine, whether it is syrup or pills, but those who are suffering more and more, they need some other way to heal themselves. And I think poetry is another level of healing ourselves. It is not normal to take a dose of medicine to heal yourself, but it is a way to heal yourself beyond the normal way. And from this certain point, I can mention to one of the cases in this book. I think the case of the author herself. And if we refer to her poems about the illness or diseases she was suffering from, and how she wrote poems to her diseases, and how did she find a way to cure herself by talking to the disease. If you have an enemy, you need to take the power of this enemy from itself. Enemies are controlling us by their authorization. So if we can take out this authorization from them, it means you can fight and you can defend yourself against them. So when Rat Saxena talked to her diseases, I think this was a way of healing. And the ways, I think there are 10 other cases she was talking, and I like it. The case in Medellin, actually by the famous poet Fernand Randon. He was in Medellin, and Rat Saxena went to Medellin city for the festival, the famous festival, and she was telling us how miserable was the situation there, because everyone was afraid from the other. So whenever she coming to a shop or going to some bar, anywhere, she will feel that there are some fear everywhere. If you are buying anything, even a small thing, you will find bars between you and the seller. This bars is protecting him and maybe protecting you. So this kind of fear, it was not born in a day. It is born in decades of fear, or maybe no work available, maybe a lot of migrations from other countries, migrations from other cities, maybe from the countryside to the city. This fear, it means that society is suffering from something. If you have fear, it means there is something wrong, something you cannot develop the right way. You cannot take fear by a machine or by a robot. No, you have to deal with it in another way. And Fernand Brandon and his company invented that way, that different way, which is introducing poetry to the city. It started with an audience of 1,500, and look now how many thousands are watching Medellin. Even online, it came to some 40,000 who are watching international poets from everywhere reciting their poems. It is healing. Even Rat Saxena realized the difference from 2011 when she went first, and 2014 when she came for the second time. 3 years there was a change, and I think 3 decades of this festival changed a lot. So the school of talking to diseases and the school of talking to people in poetry, there are many ways that this book, this rich book, introduced to us.
Babitha, you want to
A
say
very
something?
important, yes.
Mhm.
Yes, definitely. A very important, component of this book is the way Dr. Saxena goes into the history. That's very interesting. Actually, I was reading through it, and I could see that the resonances of healing through poetry is there in every culture, in every ancient primitive culture. For example, that begins with the African culture. She also speaks about the sound who. Which resonates with our own. See, even in the Bible, you can see there is this saying that in the beginning there was a word. Okay, it's from the sound, that voice, everything, sort of ripples of life. In fact, began all over the universe. So that kind of a rippling of the sound is very, very important, and especially the cadences, the rise and fall of the sound. And this ancient societies knew it right from the beginning. So from African societies, from Zulu culture and all, she comes to Native American culture. There also, she finds that, healing through words, and not just by a single priest. Sometimes there were groups of people who, in fact, gathered together, and they healed those people who were in distress. And from there, the shamanistic culture, where a lot of spiritual energy, the ancient was involved in healing, and the entire well-being of the community, the entire environment was actually blessed with a kind of a spirituality. How the physical and the spiritual became one in human blessing. So these are very important lessons, Dr. Saxena, to the present day, because now the pandemic has shut down the entire world. The entire world has been shut down by the pandemic, and I think this is a kind of a book that has actually come at the right time. In 2020 this book comes, and of course we are struck by the pandemic and how important words. And here we are actually talking about the healing power of poetry. We are healing ourselves as well as we are telling others it can actually heal, and we are healing others. So this is actually, in fact, very coincidental, but very, very important kind of marking on history, how the poetry can be so therapeutic and poetry can heal the world.
Actually, I want to share one thing, that because you might have seen my biodata, my research work is Atharva Veda, one of the ancient books. And this Veda is not mentioned as a part of main, or not respected as other three Vedas, due to some certain reasons. The main cause was that it was related to the disease. Because in this Veda, you find that 40% hymns are for the disease. And these hymns are so beautiful, so rhythmic, and very, very close to humankind. So my PhD thesis was only for the linguistic study of the Atharva Veda, means how the words developed and how they changed the meaning due to time, and how this. So that was a purely linguistic, purely research oriented work, like we used to have in our time, because those time the research means real research. So that how this language developed. But I was reading between the lines from very starting. Mostly the Sanskrit scholars or Sanskrit students are very traditional. They don't want to see if Vedas means it is respectful. They don't see apart from it. But from early time, I was seeing everything from sixth eye or the third eye, or from my sixth sense. So, where it is said that this mantra, these, I first I find this, there are many hymns which were like a love poetry, love poem, and the person, the person who is singing a song wanted to invite her beloved, or wanted that her beloved should love him deeply, strongly, and then he was taking help of some aushad. Aushad means the leaves that time, pushpa and all. So he wanted to take those leaves and make churnam and use for the to attract his beloved. These things were taken later on as a tantra shastra. Uh, it manipulated. So I said, no, it is not. It is a pure love poem, and they are using medicine. And many times, medicine means they've had a faith in um, uh, this plants. They have faith in nature. For them, the night was also a human, and which was so beautiful. So these they so I feel no, it is not. There could be something behind it. And in the starting, when I was working and I was learning, I was translating Ayappa Panikar. Babitha Justin knows him. He's a he is prominent. He was prominent Malayalam poet, internationally known, and English professor, but great scholar. And while talking about it, about Atharveda, I discussed it to Dr. Ayappa Panikar. And then he says, who asked you to read Vedas as your teachers are teaching you? You write Vedas about Vedas as you read it. And that is how I wrote first another book. What is that? The fresh approach to Atharvedic study. And while writing this book, I got again astonished. I said, my God, full of medicine, full of pure medicine, pure love in, it is not medicine, pure love in nature, healing. So then I said that there should be something else. So then in 2015, a German, Irish poet came, and she was poetry therapist. And then I got this word poetry therapy. So now I understood that these hymns were actually used as therapy. Otherwise, why they use these hymns while treating a patient? So they were using it therapy, and that is how my research continue comparing to this that all this I was just keep comparing. So that was behind it what Babitha asked me. Thank you. Now Ashraf, please.
Uh, we we will not stop at one point in this book because it is full of corners that we should go through, and I believe that it's good to discuss this section on religion. You talked about many religions, but in Islam, you came directly to Sufism, as if it is the only way to express healing by poetry. So, whether it is true or not, but we need to say that the presence of poetry in daily life, normal life, is very strong, because it is not only referring to famous poems and famous poets and so kind of literature or literary heritage, but because of the similarity in writing between the literature in poetry and the holy text in the Holy Quran. It means that this kind of balancing between the two texts may give the poet or might give the poet some kind of authority in the society, that he is a kind of a prophet or a kind of a messenger, or he is saying some words that it is not normal, it is beyond the normal speech. And this is why at the very beginning, poetry, vocal poetry, classical poetry was getting its audience from the rhyming or the strong rhyming inside its verses, similar to what the Islamic ear used to hear from the Quran. But by the years, modern years, the poets, modern poets, are no longer imitating the rhymes. They are no longer writing in the classical way. They are inventing some sort of prose poems, which is different from the rhyme and the meter or metrical poems that used to be at the very beginning. And in the same time, in the Arabic audience, get away from the modern poets. It means they couldn't identify themselves with this new poetry because it is not rhyming, because it is not getting the strong acceptance by the ear that used to hear the classical rhymed poems similar to the holy text. So this is the difference that poetry gives to the poet and how it was taken from him again when he went away from the holy text way of writing. But this kind of similarity we hear at the very beginning of Islam, because when Prophet Muhammad came, he was saying these verses to call for Islam and to disgrace his status. The tribes were saying that these are not a text and he is not a prophet, he is just a poet. So even the prophet of Islam was given the adjective of a poet or the class of a poet. It means he is less than to be a prophet. This is the way that similarity between poetry and holy text was there, and that was given the authority to the poems. And this actually came or bring us to your example that you brought, Rab'a al-Adawiyya, the lady, Sufism lady, who tried to express herself, her dignity, her freedom, which is an example of Muslim woman, but in a way that is using poetry to call for her freedom and for her value or for her other noble things. So the dilemma with the poetry, actually, whether we use it as a way of expressing ourselves, whether it is a hand of Islam or a hand of kind of religious call, or it is just an expression of inner feeling or inner way of expressing. So different ways, I think, across the ages, across the years, is different and making poetry different to the other audience or the other people who are using poetry. And that is why, if you refer to me, for example, I discovered by chance that the three poets I translated their poems into Arabic from English, who were Koreans, the three of them were monks: Ho-on, Cho-Oh-hyun, and Manhei. For time of their lives or time or the entire lives, they used to be monks. So it is only a chance that it is generating the question, why did I choose those? Because their poems were healing me. So translator also can seek some sort of healing through poetry by translating or by his choices what to translate. Thank you.
Do you want to say? Yeah, yes, I was inviting you. Please, Babitha, I'm inviting
Thank
you.
you, madam. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, ma'am. It's a very, very interesting point what Mr. Ashraf has in fact told us, and I think it's like while I was reading Rati Saksena's book, what another very interesting factor that I have seen. These things we never notice because it's all there, all around. It's all not scientifically studied. People are not looking into these aspects right now. I'm sure with the pandemic around, we are all re-looking into our lives in a very different way altogether. Now, I was actually looking at reading through how she in fact weaves the Onam festival along with the kind of therapy that we are talking about. I don't know if Mr. Ashraf knows about it. We are celebrating Onam now. It's a festival that is unique to Kerala. It's a harvest festival, and usually we have a lot of festivities around. There is the story of this great king of Mahabali who was ruling. He was an Asura king. That is, Asuras were not gods, and he was an Asura king. They were demons. Roughly translated, Englishmen translated him as demons, but he was a very respected, very intelligent kind of Asura king and loved by everybody. And there was complete ethical kind of contact between people during at that time. And while the gods were in fact quite envious of him, and they sent Vamana. Vamana is one of the avatars of Vishnu, and Vamana comes as the generous king for three pieces of land, and he agrees. And the first piece of land, he takes over the entire, skies. Second, the entire earth. Third, he didn't have the place to step on. And Mahabali, he shows his own head. Okay, you can step on me. You can take me. And Mahabali is like, he sings to the Patar. That is the underworld after this. And to commemorate this memory, every year, we have the Onam festival, and that coincides with the harvest festival of Kerala. And, how Rati Saxena in fact looks at Onam is very unique. Of course, the stories are there, these mythologies are there, different variations and interpretations to these mythologies are all there. But then, how do people create their own gods, and how singing becomes part of invoking the gods, and how the drum beats and the percussions and all they not only weave into the kind of festive mood, but they also, in fact, in fact, they give a kind of lot of comfort and solace to the people around. So just before the Onam festival, we have Karkataka season. That is a darker season. Used to be one of the darkest seasons in Kerala. Even now, we have sort of perpetual floods happening, continuous floods in the past 3 years. So that is a time when people fall ill and people get fever. There's darkness all around. There's like monsoon sets in, rain all around. There's dampness and wetness. Uh, all these things are in fact compensated by this particular season. That is the harvest season, or the Chingam season. This is the time when Onam also happens, and how songs also come along with it as a healing tradition. And this was actually an eye opener. And of course, she also talks about other folk cultures in Kerala. Kerala is unique in this way because we had the worship of the female goddess from time immemorial, from 2000 years onwards. We are the great Kali worshippers in Kerala. Now a lot of things have changed. But then invoking Mother Goddess, even now in folk cultures, in Padayani, in Teyyam, Patu, all these things actually, I was wondering how Ratima actually put all these things together. And I was so impressed by the kind of research she has actually put into it because, she was looking and through these songs, a lot of healing touch. The healing songs were in fact sent to uh, patients who were inflicted with mental illness, depression, okay, physical illness, smallpox. The smallpox, there is a Devi for smallpox, for healing smallpox. Okay, so in Kodunallur also we have the smallpox Devi. You go there, you pray, you sing songs, you praise her, and it seems you get a kind of magical healing. So the traditions of all the kind of ritualistic traditions of religion, which were there in different parts of India, also tell us that it was just not a kind of a spiritual journey, but the spiritual journey, in fact, inculcated. It took along the physicality and the well-being of human beings. Now everybody talks about well-being and wellness and things like that, but then when you look at the traditions from ancient times onwards, that kind of a harmony between spirit and physicality, between nature and nature and human beings and gods. These were all, sort of sought within through songs and poems. That poetry became the kind of culmination of that most beautiful act of invoking the kind of physical wellness to the entire universe.
Thank you, Babitha. I just want to add one more thing in it, that I study a lot about Kerala folk culture, and I have written articles. I didn't bring the book, and I was very much interested, and my interpretations are very different, because my interpretation, even a Vedic scholars, that I know that from the folk deities has converted into the elite deities. You know that. You know that Padayani was a folk, and it became a suddenly it is on the stages, it is a in a dance festivals, and it is a theater, so it is adopted by the elite class. So this is also the field of my
Yes.
work, and I have done, but I'm afraid of publishing it, because I may be hurting very, very traditional people. I feel bad about this thing, that yes, in Puranas, Bali is called Asura, means not Sura. But Asura is not in the bad sense till Mahabharata. Sura is one community, one tribe, and Asura, which is not tribe. But later on, Puranas has converted Asura as a big demon. And then you people also started accepting it. So why you accept is painful to me. And many work I have done before. Actually, I have written many articles on it. But those days, people were listening, but now not. But this is my area also. And Kerala is very much, actually, it resembles the folk, because it is a very mixed culture. From outsider, I'm saying it is a very mixed society. Means people who look very smart, very modern, follow the ancient tradition also. So that thing I have seen only in Kerala, and they remember their things. I've seen my neighbor doctor. She used to go to her village for this Sarpakav, some festival which comes 5 days, once in a 5 years. For 1 month, the whole family starts, and the Sarpa means snake, Karva means temple, and that festival with this this kind of songs keep going for 1 month, and whole family means 100, 200, 300 members come from different countries to follow it. So this is the land which can give us so much, but I feel that you people are losing your own thing. So anyway, so Ashraf, now you can go about. I wanted to know, Ashraf, one thing, that you were talking about the Quran and numeral these numbers, because I have used everything is number Pythagoras says, and then you said that how the number is involved in Quran. So can you explain this, please?
There are two senses. This is the common sense, and let us say elite or academic or literary sense. So, in the normal sense or public sense, you can hear a lot about the miracles and how our numbers are figuring your life. We in modern lives are controlled by numbers, numbers everywhere actually. Not only telephone numbers, house numbers, account numbers, bank numbers, but even the facts about lives are transferred by numbers. Every day in every country nowadays, every morning you get up to read the numbers about those who passed away because of coronavirus, for example. So numbers are interfering in our lives, and I am telling you that they don't give space for words. It is transferred. So maybe you are talking numbers in daily life for buying, selling, but we need also words, because words are expressing feelings more than numbers can do. You cannot express your feelings by numbers, but you can express by words. So in spreading the words, especially the good words, the poetic words, or the ways people use words themselves, it means you are transferring the modern man from a robot with numbers to a human being. And when I mentioned this in Quran about, many studies and many researchers were saying that the numbers of verses are saying that how many times the heaven is mentioned and how many times the devil is coming and how many times water is repeated. This is wrong. To transfer the text into numbers is wrong. We want the opposite. We want to transfer numbers to words. I mean, you cannot summarize your life in numbers. It means you are taking out its life. To some life persons in numbers, it is difficult. But I believe that we need a chance to grow more words, more words, to grow fields of words, farms of words. It's different from having some desert of numbers everywhere. Numbers are killing our life because they are taking us from the nature, which is not numbers. It's the nature you need to think, to see, to observe. These numbers are very abstract. You feel 1, 2, 3. This is like robot life. But words are giving the opposite thing. And words via poetry, I think it is giving life to the meaning of life itself. So this is one. Number two, I was referring also, you was taking in this book about some examples of poems talking about experiences, let us say not only disease, but talking about the nature itself. I mean, nowadays I am translating poems from India talking about nature, about tree, about river, about the sea, because actually we need to give these things around us another deep look. We need to experience the nature, because nature actually is the only thing that we can survive with. We cannot survive without nature. If nature is kept, we are kept alive, because we need to take care of the nature actually. So poetry taking care of nature, I think it needs more kind of concept to deal with. I see this book actually, Saxena, I see this book as a mirror of you. It is a magic mixture of academic with narration, with poetry, and with even some secrets, with some talking to yourself. So if I am looking inside this book, I'm looking inside you, which is a good example that you are transferring what could be an academic work to be some sort of amusing book for public, which is needed. We are not making, I'm talking about people of poetry who are making books. We are not making books to be kept in libraries or universities drawers. We need books like this that goes to life, book to life, and generate more books alive. So if you are giving here some sort of alternative medicine, so we need more books in the same way, and this could be a good start, a good example, that we need someone to talk to us in this way, to tell us about himself and the world. And I think everywhere, like Babitha said about what examples you brought from Kerala and what examples you wrote about poems, this is a way of giving us openly. It is not only the fist, it is that content is open to the public. So thank you again for choosing the topic and treating it in this way and publishing it in this way.
Babitha, your turn. Please say something. Babitha, yeah, if you want to say.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am. I mean, maybe we are reaching the end of the show, right, ma'am? I just want to tell you an experience of mine. I was working in the Northeast for 5 years in a place called Tura, Meghalaya. I was there with my husband for some time. Then my husband came back to Kerala, and I was there alone. And my kids were also here in Kerala. So at that time, I was staying alone in a house. When I was staying alone in this house, once I had a fall and I fractured my palm and my wrist, in fact. It was a very bad fracture. I was taken to the hospital and I had a big cast on, and I had nobody to help me. So one of my students came and she stayed with me to help. The next day, one of my friends, who was, who was very good in the traditional medicine, indigenous medicine, one professor there in the Garo department, Professor Fami, she, in fact, took me. She said, "You come home. I want to introduce you to somebody." And she took me home, and there came an old practitioner of this indigenous medicine, one man. And he said, "You take the cast off." The doctor said, "I'll have to put the cast on for an entire month." Okay, this man, he said, we removed the cast, we cut open the cast, and then he put some herbal medicine on my hand, and then he was in fact chanting his own songs of healing. I was chanting the songs of healing, and he was putting those medicines and all. And he said, every day, for 2 days I'll be doing this, I'll be chanting and putting this, then 2 days you'll be all right. I nearly laughed because I've already, many times I've broken many bones in my body, and it has taken months and months, for me to in fact recover. And I really laughed. I thought, what is this man saying? Within 2 days, and such a fracture is going to go away. And see, I stayed with my friend there. The next day he came and he reapplied the herbal medicine. He chanted the song and he went away. It happened for 2 days. Third day, we removed the bandage. Cast was not there, the bandage was not there. The bandage was there, and I could move my arm. There was nothing, and it was so naturally healed. Then I went to the hospital. I took an X-ray, and there was no sign of fracture at all. Then this man was actually telling me, see, they had this whole tradition of chanting their songs and mantras. Even before cutting down a tree, they used to go to the tree and they used to ask, mother tree, will you please allow me to, in songs, they all used to stand there, apologize to the tree. They used to ask the tree, can I cut you down? Because we need you so badly. In your old life, you're going to give us a new life. And then it used to be cut down. Things have actually changed a lot, but at least now we can remember all these things, and books like this can in fact bring us to the such beautiful aspects of a tradition which used to be there. We only talk about the negative aspects, but then there were lots of the healing power of words. Our ancestors in fact told us, taught us, and now it's time for us to probably resurrect the entire thing and think about them. And as ma'am said, Malayalis, we have forgotten a lot about our ancestors. We, in fact, we are trying to be more like North Indians right now, which is not true. In fact, we have to preserve our cultures and go to modernity in such a way as to by preserving our cultures also. That is the kind of a moderate path. So thank you so much for this book. I could only read for the past 2 days, but then I really loved the book because it's ahead of time. It's right on time, and I'm so glad we are talking about it now.
Babitha, I wanted to talk about this asking, praying. This was actually ancient philosophy. See, that's what I study in Atharva. Suppose they go to, they want a plant, even the Vedya, the Kavi was one interesting thing, Ashraf. You will not understand that Kavi means poet. and Kavi means Vaidya, means doctor. So there is one word for both in
Oh,
Vedas.
yes.
So Kavi means poet, Kavi means doctor. So they were doing
Healer.
same thing, healing. So this Kavi, when he want to treat someone, the same you say that a bone and all these things are mentioned there. He goes to plants and he asks, Can you give me your plant, oh Oshad? You give me this? Oshad means plants, not Oshad. Medicine came later on. So because those days only the plant medicines were used. The Oshad, hey Oshad, can you give me your plants? I need it. And they have to tell them that I need to cure this boy who is only 8 years old. He wants to live for 100 years. So please give me your plants. Then he take leaves. Then he takes the leaves and he takes the ochal. Ochal means the grindstone. And then he worships the grindstone. Oh, ochal, you please help me to grind it and make medicine so I can make medicine, give to this 8 years old boy who wants to live for 100 years. And then he, while giving to this medicine to that boy, they say that, oh Indra, please help. Oh Varuna, please help this boy. Oh Mrityu, you are very, you are stronger than anyone, but please help him. And then he says that, oh boy, you're very young, you're very energetic, take this medicine. So to give this medicine, they do so many things, and
Yes.
that become the power. So, and this thing I have seen in Native American culture also, because I have seen in Medellin, I meet Native Americans. I Joy Harjaro is Native American. And talk to her, and she says that she does not know directly because they were also like our tribals. They were also removed from their tribal zone and forced made cultured, so-called cultured. So that happened. But from Joy Harjaro, many books which helped me to understand that how rich culture was of these Native Americans. 500 communities were there. They had kingdom. The mother was the lady of the house. This whole society was the leader, not the man. So such a cultured society. Then African. You might have seen some films also. The women, they have their deity was, that spider. Spider was the best, the strongest deity for them. And then they get whole because spiders create the whole world, no? So that is why the creativity was they had. And that is how I feel that we are losing. And now modern Ayurveda also, my question is that you are growing in your field. You have machines to cut those aushadha. Then you have mixes to grind them. You have bottles, plastic bottles to pack them. Then you give in selling them, half of the power has gone. So how
That's true.
come these Ayurvedic medicine will help? Now, Ashraf, do you want to say something? Ashraf? Ah.
Yes, regarding this point, while you are talking, I was making a doll by paper, this, we are talking about rituals. And in one of your experiences, you was talking about writing about devilish things, and how to tear them. So in traditions, we have something like this, which looks like a doll or a woman doll. This is a spirit that is having all devilish things. So we are making this thing, and after that we write the names. We write down the name of the person whom we think he is behind all devilish works. And after that, we brought some sort of pen and taking these things, and later we put it in fire. This kind of healing by making words and making fire is bringing, as you said, all ancestors to life through some rituals or some ceremonies. And you know, people are so believing in such actions. So if we are transferring this to modern therapy, I mean by noting down what the black ants are doing or something like this, and fighting these black ants or nightmares in this way, it means you are healing yourself. You are bringing rituals. So in your book, you are talking about Greeks, you are talking about old or ancient Africans, you are talking about your civilization in India, but also I am telling you that through the history, the people are keeping these rituals in modern ways, and poets are, let us say, borrowing or recreating them in their words. Thank you.
Do you have any last word, Babitha? Babitha, do you have any thing to say?
Just that, you know, see, if you look at modern life, see, now we have lots of gimmicks in modern life, like we have meditation songs, we have sleep meditation songs, you have songs to listen early in the morning and things like that. Of course, these have actually these are becoming part of modern day lifestyle as well. But perhaps, you know, if we also look at the past and look at the way how, in fact, words were in fact used to convey ideas as well as to conjure music and to create the rhythm and the cadence and the fall and the rise of them. If you look at the way in which words were carefully selected and used, you know, to heal, you can use words to destroy as well. Heal. You know, the entire tradition can also give us a lot of insights into, in fact, as Varun said, people were in fact living their life like a prayer, like, you know, asking a tree for permission for cutting down, you know, and you know, asking permission to that inanimate object. So to the inanimate as well as the animate universe, there are plenty of communication happening, and communication in a very respectful manner, in a very gentle and respectful and prayerful manner. So these are things that we can in fact look into, inculcate, and perhaps you know, use it in our own lives. So it's something that we really have to look into.
Ashraf, anything more? Do you want to say something? At the end, we are going to.
Maybe some of the audience didn't listen to us when we were talking about the title of your book, which is expressing a fist which opened. And we were talking about how is this expressing the book very well, because it is transferring the fist to an open hand, which is giving peace, which is transparent, which is giving. It means it has a good thing to offer. It is like offering in temples, so we are offering in life. And I think that we need to give hands to other poets as well to continue this path of healing or using, and first to believe in their poems. If they are believing in their poetry, if they are believing they are true poets, they can also transfer this to the audience. No doctor can cure his patients if he is not confident in himself. So poets, I am calling poets to believe in the power inside themselves and how good they are to convey their messages, their values, their concepts to the audience, not only in written words, but in virtual words, maybe in Facebook. So let us say that it's a year of a change in our way of using words. Let be good words to be used in good ways for good future. This is what I may ask by ending or concluding the discussion of this rich book.
Thank you, Ashraf. I want to reply to one question that was given by, I just read it, that they say that somebody has said that the poetry therapy is close to music therapy. It is close. Everything is close, but it is not music therapy. Both are very different. Both are very different because poetry therapy means that there in some therapies you are part of poetry, you are creating poetry. While creating poetry you're imaginating, you're entering in the pain, in the sorrow, so you are involved totally. While in music you are influenced by the sound, with the music, with the rhythm, and somebody else's words. So you are adopting somebody else's word as your word. That is also therapy, but up to a limit. But when you create, when you write your own suffering, your own pain, your own feeling, your own prayers, that works more than listening a music. So that is the difference between music therapy and the poetry therapy. And one more question was asked by publisher, that what is the difference between the performing poetry on the stage and in a big festivals and all, and the therapy. So I said that both can be same, but it depends. If you are performing in a sake of your presentation as a theater, as an act, then it can be helpful to someone who is listening. But when you are performing, as she says, that Babitha said that one one person came and he treated and he chanted the hymns. So that was actually totally therapy. So there is a minor difference between poetry, minor, not not minor, it is important difference between the poetry therapy and music therapy. Same way, the poetry on the stage or our presentation and poetry as a therapy. So these things are, but mostly for me actually, most of the poetry I write as a therapy only, and sometimes I don't write poetry. For like this pandemic time, I did not write single word. I did not feel like writing. I was writing only articles. My anger was so high that I didn't want to spoil poetry. So I was keep writing articles as if I am beating someone. But I was not writing poetry. So poetry is something very sensitive thing. So do I close? Do you want to say something else? Please let me know. Then we will close it. Babitha and Ashraf. Uh, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. It is said all, and we wish all to follow your path in poetry therapy.
And then Babitha, do you want to say a few words?
No, I'm actually so glad. I'm so thankful for this very interesting discussion. In fact, it has opened a lot of new meanings and new interpretations to poetry. And I'm sure, people who are listening will also understand the kind of, therapeutic value of poetry and spiritual value of poetry. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you very much.
Mr.
Thank
Ashraf
you,
and
both
Ratina.
of you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.